Aloha kako guys, welcome back to Just&True. I am just sitting here at work bored to death, so I figured I'd post another really quick video. And this is basically just the importance of mind over matter. Your mental state and your ability to deal with and to adapt with the changing situations, and to also adapt with changing people. You're not always going to agree with the people that you're trying to create a community with, and you're not always going to agree with the environment that you're trying to create a life in. But it's our ability to adapt and overcome these challenges to accomplish our goal. If there is an environment that is too cold for us to live in, but we have no other option, we create a house, we create a shelter, and we create fire. And we turn that environment into a livable shelter, a place that we can call home, a place that we can be warm at. Sorry for the shaky phone. The same thing goes with communications and with communities. If we find a community or a person that we're trying to communicate with or build with, or if we're trying to create a community and it's too cold, or we're not seeing eye to eye, or there's no unit cohesion, there's too much disagreement, well then you just simply need to build a proverbial shelter and build a proverbial fire so you can gather around. There's too much division, and I think that can't be said enough between us from the little things, that instead of simply arguing about these divisions, we simply just don't allow the divisions to occur. If two people have two different opinions, they're more than welcome to share their opinions, and they're more than welcome to debate their opinions. But when it becomes a argument, that's when we need to understand, okay, regardless of your view and regardless of how your view is different than mine, we can both recognize that this conversation is no longer constructive. We're using terms and language that is not conducive to our message. Therefore, we should just drop it. I think there should be a big understanding of how and when to walk away from a conversation. And it's a tactical retreat. It doesn't mean that you've lost a conversation or there's even a battle to be won anyway. In fact, it might mean the opposite. If you're causing divide amongst your brothers, stop it. Your brothers are your brothers regardless. So we have a good community, we have a strong community. Us as preppers, we have a lot in common. We have a lot more in common than we do differences, and I think that we need to focus on that. If you hear or if you see anybody in our community, I don't care if it's on a Discord channel, on a YouTube channel, if you're on Twitch, if you're on Skype, if you're on the phone, if you're in real life, but if you hear or see one of your brothers or sisters disagreeing with each other on a point that's moot, or on a point that there's just no conduciveness towards, then simply point out the fact that there's no reason to have the conversation any longer. That if it's not life or death or threatening the progression of our goal, then it's hurting us. If it's not helping, it's hindering. If you're not part of the problem, you're part of the solution. So we can have not arguments, but we can have discussions and we can have debates about things if we feel we need to build upon them. But once that building starts getting too tall, or once the foundation and the structure starts giving way, and we start giving way to, instead of personal opinions, personal attacks, then we need to abandon ship and realize that we failed our conversation and we need to start again. It doesn't mean that you can't bring up the same topic once it's been dropped because the conversation got toxic. It just means it should be picked up at a different time. Maybe there's another point of view from another person that we need to hear, or maybe it's just a wrong time for the two people having the conversation. So just remember, above all, love is the most important, and understanding is the most important, and just realize that we have far much more in common than we do our differences, and dividing and conquering is the reason we got ourselves in the situation today, and the reason for half of us being in the prepping community. Most of us aren't even prepping for disaster relief, which is, 90% more likely to happen than anything else, but we're prepping because of the division between mankind, the division between churches, the division between nations, the division between government and shadow government. Don't let there be a division between us. We're supposed to be the solution. We're not the problem. I love you all. I love you guys to death, man. Just remember that. Go forth and be kind to each other. Let your words be covered with salt so that all men can understand you. And simply just be the bigger person and know when to step back and say, you know what, I agree to disagree, but we can both agree that this conversation is no longer conducive to our progress. We're both looking for the same progress, but we're hindering each other. So why don't we talk about something else until we find the right words to communicate this message. Again, I love you guys. I hope you have a good night, and mahalo.